In the previous video, we finished designing this hero section. Let's go and add a second section now. Let's take a quick look at our sketch again and then decide how we should add this section. So this section here is supposed to contain a profile image and some text. So we sort of need to split it into two parts. Let's keep that in mind when designing our section. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a new section element in Webflow. And you will notice that you cannot drop this section element within any other section. So sections can only be used to really be dropped inside the body or maybe a div element. And that helps us make sure that we structure our page correctly. So let me now take the section and drop it at the bottom. And now we have our next section. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a container element and drop it within that section. And the reason I'm doing that is because we said earlier that we use container elements in order to center content on the page. And you will see that there is some margin applied on the left and the right hand side of this container element. And if you take a look at the spacing settings here of this container element, you will notice that that we cannot adjust the margin of the container on the left and right hand side. That's handled by Webflow, depending on the size of the screen. So there are certain desktops which have extremely big screen sizes, or certain computers. And accordingly, Webflow is going to increase the margin for container elements for computers with very big screens in comparison to smaller laptops, for example. So that's the reason why we cannot adjust the width of the margin, but rest assured, the Webflow handles it perfectly for us. And all the elements you see on this page, if we nest them within a container, they're all going to be on the same line. So this whole navigation bar is nested within a container, meaning everything we will put in the next section will also be on the same line as this serve and trade logo. Let's go about and filling that container. In order to add an image and some text, we need to create some spacing in this container. Now there are several options how we can create this spacing. One option is to use columns. You will see this is a layout element Webflow offers us. In this case, we are going to use something different. We're going to use the flex option here in the display settings. For that, I'm going to add two div blocks inside the container. We add a second div block and make sure that they're on the same line. Perfect. And then I'm going to apply some class settings. Now let's first give this first div block a class of left div, and the second one of right div. And we want to set the width in terms of percentage. So we could say, for example, that the right div is supposed to be 66.6% wide, and let's make that 33.3%. And I just lost it. Oh, I think I did the right div. Okay, and now let's select this container and also give it a class of flex container. And set the settings to flex layout. And all we have to do now is make sure that they align at the center and justify at center. So right now you cannot see any of our containers because they don't contain anything. Let's go about and change that so that we can again see our div elements. So we added the section with the container and made it flex, but it's right now invisible. The reason for that is if we select the section, we gave all these elements some width, however we haven't given them any height. That means currently the height is 0 because there's no content in there, and these div elements themselves have no standard width or height. So we need to add something inside these div elements in order for us to see the section again. Let's go about doing that exactly now. I'm gonna select an image element and place it inside the left div. There we go. Now let's make sure that we actually display the image we want to display. I already uploaded an image here. Let's take that and leave it like this for now. We can style everything later. Let's add some text elements inside the right-hand section. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a heading element and make sure to place it inside the right div. And then make sure that we select H2. Reason being is that we already have one H1 element here on this page, and there should never be more than one H1 element per page. The next thing is I can either select a paragraph element or I can select a rich text element. The rich text element is allows us to write text using paragraphs and quotes and headings all in one element. That's a Webflow specific element. It's especially meant for writing text without us having to add several paragraph elements. And it's easier to style. So I'm just going to select the rich text element, and then you can see what I mean by writing inside it. So I'm going to drop that inside the right div. And there you go. We can, in order to edit the rich text element, all I have to do is click inside it. And now I can delete stuff, and you can see I can add all these different elements and different text elements. And Webflow is automatically going to transform them into the right HTML element for us. Let's start replacing the content in these elements. So first of all, I'm going to give this heading a different, its own class, section heading, and fill it with some content. The next thing is I prepared some text already, so I'm just going to replace the content inside the rich text block element. It's a bit confusing sometimes getting inside it. You just have to click around quite a bit, and then we can fill that up. Okay, now we have some content. Let's go about styling everything.